Hello, this is a writing craft book review of Story or Die by Lisa Cron, by me, Miranda Darrow. Every week in my Facebook group, we talk about a different writing craft book, and September's book is Story or Die by Lisa Cron. Let me preface this review by saying that Story Genius by Lisa Cron is one of my favorite writing craft books of all time, and I recommend it constantly. I met the author when she presented at the Write Touch conference in Milwaukee in 2019. She was lovely and her talk was inspiring. I really love her thoughts on writing, especially her character-driven format for confirming that the plot works in service of a fulfilling character growth arc, and the underlying framework to tie the two, the plot and the character growth arc, together. Her latest writing craft book, Story or Die, is also full of useful nuggets and great examples to make her points. The target market for this book, though, is not necessarily authors who are writing fiction. I think her target market is business people trying to convince potential customers or colleagues or their competition of the value of their product. It also includes politicians and pretty much any type of person who wants to influence others, and the benefits of including compelling stories in their pitches. This book succeeds on that front. Cron's other book, Wired for Story, focuses more on the science and psychological and sociological impact that story has on listeners. Her book that is most focused on fiction authors is Story Genius, so that's my recommended starting point for any fiction authors wanting to dive in. But if you've read Story Genius and want to dig deeper, absolutely try out her other two books. I've read them both and I enjoyed them both. Here are some insights that you will find in Story or Die, and my thoughts on some of them. First, throw facts at us and we duck. Personify those same facts in a story, and we lean in, not by choice, but because we're biologically helpless against an effective story. We're 22 times more likely to remember something we learned in a story over something someone explained to us. That's a quote from Story or Die by Lisa Cron, where Cron cites research from behavioral scientist Jennifer Aker to make this point about the overwhelmingly superior motivation power of story over spewing a bunch of raw facts at someone whose viewpoint you'd like to change. We're wired to resist change, often at all costs, because evolutionarily speaking, resisting change didn't make us stubborn, it made us smart. Once a system's in balance, its goal isn't merely to stay balanced, but to stay in that particular balance because past experience has proven it's safe. It's wired to stay put. From Story or Die by Lisa Cron, where she explains the concept of homeostasis that applies to biological organisms to assure their physical safety in an ecosystem, and how it makes people resistant to change even in the face of facts. Here's another quote from Story or Die by Lisa Cron. Story diffuses the analytic part of the brain. When you're lost in a story, the same areas of your brain light up as would activate if you were doing what the protagonist is doing. You really are there, experiencing it as if it was happening to you. By allowing you to vicariously live through the actual boots-on-the-ground effect facts have in real life, stories inspire change in a way that facts alone cannot. I love this discussion of the spell of fiction, where readers are experiencing the story as if they were living it, and not merely reading it. This is a compelling reason to explore deeper POV, to remove POV filter words like the main character's thought or felt or decided. Those types of words just serve to remind readers that they are reading and not experiencing the events themselves, thereby breaking the spell of fiction. Another great quote in Story or Die by Lisa Cron is, "Don't assume that the only reason people don't already use your product, believe in your cause, or embrace your idea is that they've never heard of it." Chapter 7, Lisa Cron was identifying the audience's hidden resistance, and she gave the case study of a marketing campaign for Motel 6, in which a focus group of participants who had all stayed at the chain refused to all volunteer that they did when asked what their favorite hotel brands were. They all felt that staying at a hotel known for discount prices made them look cheap, but during the course of the focus group, when pressed, some participants admitted that staying there to be thrifty, to have funds to be able to spend on other things like treats for their grandkids. And once the narrative in the focus group shifted from cheap to thrifty, the Tom Bodett ad campaign was launched. including the "We'll leave the light on for you" effective motto for the chain for decades. Staying at Motel 6 was viewed as a smart choice rather than an embarrassing one. We're primed to try the easiest solution first, which is admittedly to take a nice little nap and hope the problem is gone by the time we wake up. Each new twist should raise the stakes so that with each new development, your protagonist has more to lose. This is from Story or Die by Lisa Cron. I love this comment because so often writers are not hard enough on their protagonists, wanting to let them off too easy. Make it tough for the main character to reach their goals. Make it almost impossibly hard, for the greatest emotional response from readers will be from the toughest challenges faced by your protagonist. Ooh, this was one of my favorite parts of the book, Story or Die by Lisa Cron. There are 4 elements to an effective aha moment. First, it must come at the last possible minute. 2, it must belong to the protagonist rather than someone else in the story. 3, it must be transparent so the audience understands the evolving logic, the inner struggle behind it. And 4, it must be liberating. The protagonist is freed from the misbelief that has held them back and can now solve the problem. Your protagonist's aha moment is meaningless unless you reveal the logic behind it. What matters is the because. It's what lets us know what those realization means. In other words, the why behind them. It's the realization that allows the protagonist to solve the problem, which makes it liberating. The aha moment sets your protagonist free from the misbelief that's been holding them back. This quote is from near the end of Story or Die by Lisa Cron and directly related to the challenge fiction writers have in timing the story's climax to coincide with the character's emotional growth arc, so that they work together to produce the most impactful change in both the character and the reader. I love this concept and am thinking of embroidering it onto a pillowcase if I had that kind of skills. This is writing advice gold. Overall, I think that Story or Die by Lisa Cron is a very worthwhile read. I do recommend that fiction authors wanting something that's completely on point for how they can best improve their novel story start with Story Genius, but the insights and advice from this craft book, Story or Die, will stay with me for a long time. If you want to get in on the discussion of this and other writing craft books that we tackle each month in my free Facebook group, there's a link in the caption. If you want more writing and editing tips, like, subscribe, and click on the bell to get notices of my new content posted every week on this YouTube channel. This is Miranda Darrow, and happy writing!